I have a problem, and I'm going to tell you about it whilst I put my socks on. Now, this problem is not something as trivial as lactose intolerance. I haven't eaten cheese recently, and fortunately enough, I actually don't suffer too badly with lactose intolerance. My problem is a little bit more severe than that. And in this video, I want to talk to you about it, for no other reason than basically for me to even explore and articulate why it exists, and I'm hoping that one day you will face the same problem, because it's a good fucking problem to have, and I'm going to tell you all about it. My name's Charlie. If you're new to the channel, hi. You did just watch me put my socks on. I hope you're okay with that. It does get a little bit uncomfortable for some people. But in this video, I'm going to explain the biggest problem that I'm currently facing in business, and it's one that I can't really do much about. Kind of sucks, but it's also the problem that everybody wants to have. And I can tell you it's not very fun. So let's get into it. So my name is Charlie, like I said. I basically have built and scaled a business called NorthFlow Consulting. It's a marketing agency that we grew to 7 figures. And I now have a company called Imperium Acquisition, which is a multi-7-figure, 500k a month coaching company where we help people make client acquisition easy. We have a bunch of fun. It's all a bunch of laughs. But this is a serious issue. The problem that I face is I no longer have any work to do. Now, that sounds ridiculous, because there's always stuff to do, but hear me out. I'm going to explain it. And one day you will face the same problem. If you work really hard and you build a business properly in the right way, you're going to be stuck with nothing to do. So here's the conception of this problem, right? In summary, I built a company. We've got a team of 10 people. It's very simple. It's very lean. It doesn't require many moving parts. We have one product, 1 or 2 channels of traffic, one funnel, one price, one payment plan, one contract, one sales script, one support method. It's very simple, right? We don't have many moving parts. So what that means is that, we sell information, and clients basically implement the information to get results. So we don't have much complexity operationally in terms of service delivery. We also don't have any complexity in terms of acquisition, because we only sell one thing at one price to one type of person. And I have designed my business to be as simple and as lean and efficient as humanly possible. And I've successfully done it. So in February, we signed 100 clients into EasyGrow, right? Which in lifetime value is about $960,000. If we do that every month for the next 6 months, we will be making 8 figures. And what that means is I don't need to do anything. There are some exceptions, like make these YouTube videos, continue to work on the product. But I've basically gone from working 12 hours a day, 9 months straight on my product EasyGrow, to now having this vacuum of time where I don't really have anything to do. Because here's the thing. Let me explain something about goals to you. You set a goal, right? A goal is simply a screenshot of a future state that you want to accomplish. For mine is 8 figures. My entire objective in life at present is to get to the point where I make $1 million a month. When I do that, I will go for more things, right? But here's the thing. I've created a vehicle that makes that possible, right? We've got the sales team ticking over nicely, client signing, 30 clients a week basically now. 6 people, 50 appointments a day. It happens. I don't even have to touch it. I make these YouTube videos. I manage a setter. That's it. I do nothing else, right? On the acquisition. I don't have to get involved with the sales management or the sales training, because my head rep, Jack, does that. So basically acquisition is nothing. Product, once again, there's nothing, because we've built it and it's done. Now we will continue to improve it, but it's not like product improvement. Like I've basically taught people everything that I currently know about acquisition in terms of mindset, in terms of paradigm, in terms of systems, in terms of sales. Like my entire brain is spilled out into one product. It took 9 months to do, but now like there's nothing else to add that needs to be added that is going to massively move the needle for clients. But here's the thing about goals, like I was saying. Imagine that I have built a ship, right? Imagine I'm like a Viking with a big beard. I know it's hard, but imagine that just for a second for my ego, right? But imagine I built a ship, right? And I'm the captain of that ship. And imagine I've got a destination. So I'm setting sail from one island, and I want to get to another island. Let's call the other island Hairline Paradise for whatever reason, right? So we want to get to Hairline Paradise, which is my goal. And I set sail. Now what I've done essentially with my business is I've built my ship. Okay, so I've constructed the ship. I've got people rowing on the ship. Everything's firing. We're going in the right direction. And all I have to do is wait. The ship doesn't need repairing. The ship doesn't need like new people on it. It doesn't need anything. It's like I've set the compass. People are rowing, the systems are working, everyone on the ship is happy, and there's nothing to do. And what I've learned is that if I start fucking around with the ship because I'm bored, I'm not going to get to hairline paradise. Because this is what I've talked to my business partner about. It's a very weird position to be in because I've never, ever been in the position where I don't have anything to do. But the more I interfere with my business at this point, the worse it will do. Because I've created something that is going to get me to 8 figures if I just sit on my hands and do nothing. And so I now have to transcend myself for probably the 7th or 8th time. Well, I now have to become someone who doesn't work. Now that's fucking wild because I'm sure there will be things to do. Now you might be saying, well, Charlie, surely you could create another product or create a mastermind or do this, that. But it's like, it's not by design. The design is to have a very simple lean business that operates at a 70 to 75% profit margin with no ads, that does $1 million a month in cash with a team no bigger than 10 people with one product. That is what my whole life has been centralized around for 4 years now. That's been the mission and the objective. And I'm finally at the point where I'm sailing to Hairline Island, I'm sailing to 8 figures, and all I have to do is just do nothing. And then if there's a leak in the boat, I go down, I fix it. But the problem with leaks in boats is they don't constitute full-time work. You're not going to spend 12 hours a day on a sturdy ship fixing leaks because there aren't going to be that many. You could then say the question like, well, surely you can like work to get the boat to go faster. Can you not like try and tweak around with the engine? But the problem with that is there comes a point in economics, there's this idea called, there comes a point of optimization where further optimization, I was going to say Optimus Prime then, that would have been awful. Further optimization past a certain point does not constitute any benefit and actually reduces the impact or effectiveness of the system or the thing in which you are working on. And that is a problem for me because I like to tinker. And I learned this with Aura, right, with my Aura ring here. Is I got my sleep to a really good point where I was pulling like 2.5 to 3 hours of deep sleep a night, 1.5 hours of REM. I feel really good. My heart rate was down and I continued to try and optimize. And I learned this the hard way with my Aura ring is like, there comes a point where you kind of just have to accept like, okay, I've got my sleep to a very good point. It serves me really well. It allows me to focus on my business and work all these hours without any problem. Do I really want to try and optimize my sleep to get an extra 10 minutes of deep sleep a night? It's like you could continue to optimize, but at what cost? Because now you've got to fuck with a system that's already working. And so I learned this from Sam Ovens where like with our sales channels, for example, like I could sit there and try to improve my show rate, or, you know, I could sit there and be like, oh, why don't we like introduce a sales manager and do some more coaching to try and get the conversions? But for me, it's like, if we're booking 1,000 appointments a month, we've got a 70% show rate and a 20% conversion rate. That's all we need. And I could go in and coach the sales reps in more. I could change things to improve the show rate. But the thing is I'm not certain that by doing those things that the effect would be positive. It's like you get your business to a point where everything is perfectly optimized. You are at the knife's edge of efficiency. And the problem with the knife's edge is that just tipping it slightly, you fall off, right? So I could introduce more coaching for my reps, but they don't need it. It's like, okay, if I coach them, maybe they'll get to 25% average conversion rate as opposed to 20, but maybe not. Maybe the coaching will have the opposite impact and they'll go down to 15. And so you have to start getting to this point where you transcend yourself and your thinking, your decision-making abilities, and you stop fucking with things. Now, there's a cognitive bias in psychology called the intervention bias. And basically, as humans, we have this inbuilt, native, latent desire to intervene with shit. For example, people doing therapy that don't need therapy. So they haven't got any massive problems, they haven't got depression or anxiety, but they go to therapy anyway. That is intervention bias, when you don't necessarily need to do something, but you do because you think it could be slightly improved. And this manifests especially well and very prevalently in entrepreneurs and people like us, where we're very conscientious, we're very driven, we like to see improvements, we are addicted to growth, personal and business-wise, spiritual-wise as well. And that addiction and that obsession with, when you want to see things constantly expand and improve and grow, it's very easy to want to see that everywhere. And if you're not careful, you fuck with things. Now, this is not advice that is appropriate or relevant to probably 99% of people watching this video, because you're probably in a position where your business is still growing and you're still working on it. I don't think I could point to anyone in the market who has an 8-figure boat and all they have to do is sit on their hands and let it sail. The sacrifice I have made to build it is very significant, and I'm not saying that you need to just sit on your hands if you're making a certain amount of money, because if you're making 10 grand a month, you could work harder to get 20, right? If you're making 20, you can work harder to get 100. But when you get to this point where you're making like, you know, 4, 5, 6 million a year and you're on track to do 10, 15, 20 million a year. It becomes less about your grind and more about your decisions. And so this is a lesson that I'm learning. At the moment, live time, real time, Charlie Morgan brain update, Charlie Morgan version 8 or version 7. I'm having to install new software into my brain, and in the form of a new paradigm. I have to start accepting that it's less about my ability to work really hard and more about my ability to make really good decisions. And so I'm still not quite sure how to navigate this because I've never had to do it before. But I'm still going to be working on my products and improving things for the existing clients we have. I'm still going to be making YouTube videos and investing time into my brand and my audience because that's a huge leverage point. I'm still going to be managing my team and stuff like that. And I'm still going to be supporting clients inside of my program and working on my client experience. But for me now, it becomes less about the day-to-day grind and more about sort of the month-to-month decisions. It's like, what is our next big project? And like, how does that fit into the overall mission of the company? And how does that contribute to the culture of the business? I'm now having to consider these things, which I've never had to consider before. You know, we were making some hiring decisions recently, and we have to now weigh up the difference between talent and culture. It's like, that person might be an incredible, talented sales rep, but do they fit into the culture of the business? These are things that you have to start considering when you climb the echelons of business. And they're things that I'm still not familiar with and I'm still learning how to do. And so, you know, the problem with this is there's fucking two of me. I've got a business partner, Bo. And Bo is basically, his mindset and his sort of work ethic is very identical to mine, extremely conscientious by nature, loves to tinker around with shit and loves to improve things. But like, we've been talking back and forth, like, what do we work on next? Like, what's the thing we have to do now? But ever since the launch of Easy Grow, it's really just been a question of letting things happen, right? And it's kind of like cause and effect. If you put a cause into motion, you just leave it. If you keep fucking around with it and you intervene with it, things are going to go pretty south. This is a lesson that I've been learning, and it's really difficult for me. Because here's the other thing you'll learn, is that most people look at this position, they think, God, I wish I could be in that position where I can work on my business, not in it. Because literally I could do a 4-hour work week and still make 500 grand a month. And that is not even an exaggeration at this point. That's not supposed to be a flex. It's not something that I'm proud of, or that I'm trying to wave in your face and be like, look at me, I can do nothing and still make money. That's not the point. The point here is like, you think that that's what you want. And that's what you want now in your current identity. But in order to build that life, you have to be extremely fucking conscientious for years on end. And what will happen, and this is exactly what happened to me, because this is exactly what I wanted. This situation right now, where I'm on the way to $1 million a month and I don't have to do anything. I have dreamed of this since I was a fucking kid, right? But the problem is that I started as a boy, and business has turned me into a man, a completely different human being with completely different neural networks, and everything is different, right, in my brain. And through the manifestation of my conscientious spirit in the form of my business, I've become someone that is conscientious. And when you're someone who's conscientious, you want to work. And so you right now might want to sit on a beach and have your business run itself. But in order for you to build a mechanism that allows you to do that, you have to become conscientious. And the thing about conscientiousness is it's an identity trait. It's a personality trait, right? The problem with personality traits and identities is you can be subjected to Stockholm syndrome, which basically means that you do something so much that you actually want to keep doing it even if it's painful. And I now have Stockholm syndrome for work. So I don't want to sit here and go and sit on a beach and live the laptop lifestyle. I want to work, and I want to continue to drive the business forward and put hours and hours of my time into this business, but it's no longer appropriate for me to do that. Now, I could be wrong, and this could be a massive, stupid, false sense of security like Warren Buffett said, but the point is that, like, you think you want this lifestyle where you can go and sit on a beach, but there's only so many beaches you can sit on before they all start feeling similar. There's only so many cocktails you can drink before you start, like, because imagine that. Imagine just like people are like, oh yeah, I want my business to run itself so I can go and sit on a beach and drink cocktails. It's like, that's fun for a week. But like, if you've built that business, it's going to have taken you like 3 or 4 years of like 12-hour a day work. So you've become someone conscientious. And if you're conscientious, you have this thing that I call conscientious guilt, which is where, like, when you're not working, you feel guilty. So after a while, like, cocktails on the beach sounds great until you get to like day 10, when you've been hungover for like 7 days in a row and you're not eating properly and you're getting slightly overweight and you're not moving your body because you're so lazy on a beach. And then it just falls apart. So basically, if you think you want this life, you can build it. But basically what I'm trying to do now is figure out, like, what do I need to learn next, right? So all of these things have been running through my mind, like, where is my time best invested? Because for the last 9 months, it's been my product, it's been my team, right? But now that I've got the team that I need to get to 8 figures and I've got the products I need to get to 8 figures, I need to start asking myself, like, what is the next move? Because people talk about playing chess in business a lot, being strategic and like, you know, you moves and counter moves and you think, right, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then this and this. That's impossible. It's impossible to do that when you're in the trenches and when you're trying to survive. If you're making less than like 100 grand a month, it's really hard to see the woods from the trees and be able to make strategic decisions when you're so involved in the company. I now have to look at my living, breathing organism that is this business and ask myself, as the owner of that thing, or the co-owner with my business partner, Bo, what do we need to learn? Like, what's next? Is it mastermind? Is it low ticket product? Is it just doubling down? Is it running ads? Is it learning cash and accrual based accounting in more detail? Is it studying stoicism in more detail? Because the last thing I want is to go and like fucking download Duolingo because I'm bored. Because I fucking will if I'm not careful. Like, do I learn chess? Like, all of these ideas start popping up, and the ultimate thing is like, I think it becomes more about extending the goalpost, right? And this is an important thing that I've always been able to do quite well, is just before you hit your goal, you extend the post out to the next thing. And I learned this from running, from doing long distance cross-country running. What I used to do when I lived in the countryside is I'd go for a run and I wouldn't set a distance. What I would do is I would basically I'd run around, there's this place in the UK in the southwest called the moors, the Somerset Moors, and it's beautiful, it's very flat. And what I would do is I'd run around the moors and I put my focus on something I could see in front of me, maybe a couple of 100 meters away. Could be a signpost, could be a tree, it could be a wire, could be anything. Could be like a big patch of grass or something. I put my focus on that and I would run, and then just before I got to it, I'd flick my eyes to the next thing a couple of 100 meters down the line. And so my strategy for running wasn't to just do 5K and stop. It was to basically run for as long as I possibly could. But I'd tell myself, right, I'll stop when I get to that signpost. And then 10 meters before I get to the signpost, find another target. Okay, I'll stop when I get to that hill. When I get just before I get to the hill, okay, find another thing. Okay, yeah, let's go all the way to that patch of grass. And that was my strategy for running. And that's been my strategy for business, where just before I get exactly what I want, I move the goalpost further. So when I'm running, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get there. Just before I get there, I move my gaze ahead. Because the problem with goals is what you celebrate becomes your standard, right? And so I look at 500 grand a month now and I feel not a sense of disgust. That is an extremely ungrateful thing to say. But I feel a sense of disgust around the complacency that could come as a result of making that money. Because when you start this is the thing, and you'll learn this as you make more money. The more you make, the more you realize that it's nothing. Because like to most people, 500 grand a month is like unbelievable wealth. But I'm telling you that once you get to this point, once you climb the mountain and you get past the thin air, you look at it and you think, fuck me, there is a massive peak over there and I can't believe how anyone would get there. And then you get up that peak, which could be $1 million a month, and then you think, oh my God, there's another peak over there, people doing 10 million a month. And then you climb that one and then you get there and you think, what the hell, people are doing 100 million a month. And it doesn't have a limit until you get to the billions, and then I don't know how that works. I'm definitely nowhere near there yet. But this is what I'm tackling at the moment. And I make these YouTube videos to help people with client acquisition, but also to keep myself sane. I like to be transparent and I like to help people understand where I'm at with my business. Because I think that one of the problems with a lot of these YouTube channels is they're very transactional by nature. It's like, I give value, you give appointment. And that's fine. And that model works really well. And a lot of my videos are centered around that sort of premise. But I think giving people updates on my business and like how I'm operating these problems, because you will face this problem. If you are conscientious and smart enough for a long period of time and you work on one thing and you keep your business unbelievably simple and you become the best at the thing you do, you will face this problem, right? And you will. And it's not a nice place to be. Usually when I find myself in places that aren't very nice, right, in terms of psychological pain, I work my way out of them. I can't fucking do that now. So if in the past, if I've ever had something bad happen, I just bury myself in work. I've got a tennis ball, by the way. If you haven't got like a tennis ball, get a tennis ball. They're just wonderful. Like you just sit here and you can just chuck it around and play with it. Nothing quite like having a ball to play with. I'm like a fucking dog. This is the fucking problem. When you haven't got work, you start finding random shit to just chuck around because you've got all this energy that you need to expend one way or another. I've also got a fidget spinner, which unfortunately broke. And the funny thing is this little unit thing, right, I was spinning it and this flew off and narrowly missed my face. So I could have been blinded by a fidget spinner, which would be extremely embarrassing. Back to the topic at hand, right? I don't really think I have anything else to say on this, other than the fact that it is a very good place to be, but it also comes with its consequences. Because if I'm not careful, I'm going to get quite miserable. And I don't want that to happen. But I'm also very grateful for the past versions of myself that have built this, because I now have this perch to sit on. So I've got plenty of ideas in terms of what I'm going to do next. But for me now, the success of my business is no longer dependent on my ability to work really hard. It's dependent on my ability to think and make very good decisions and be prudent. And in order to think and be prudent and make good decisions, you can't be working 12 hours a day, because the energy and the cognitive availability required for extremely good cognition is hard to find when you're, in the trenches. And so this is the relationship between the general and the soldier. It's like, I've stepped out of the trenches and I've gone up the ranks in the army, and now I'm overseeing the battlefield. But I've never done that before. I kind of did it with my old business with NorthFlow Consulting, where we had like a sales rep, but I was still heavily involved in the operations there until we got rid of the clients. But yeah, this is just an important lesson. If anyone can relate to this, I'd love to hear from you, knowing how you dealt with this. But it's just about moving the goalpost forwards next. I think that's the main thing, is just I'm close to it. Close to that 8-figure mark. Given another, I'd say 3 or 4 months, we're going to start getting very close. And just before we get close, I need to ask myself, like, what's next? And I could set the post to like, all right, let's try and do 20 million a year. But I think I'll set the goalpost to something even more significant, like 100 million a year. Because then I've got this whole fucking thing. Like a business is like, all you're doing when you're creating a business is solving an individual problem one at a time. And it's like whack-a-mole. So you solve lead sourcing, you whack the lead sourcing problem, then you have to solve the positive reply problem. So you whack that, you solve that. Then you have to solve the appointment booking problem. Then you whack the appointment booking problem and you solve that. Then and another one crops up, which is the show rate. You whack that, you solve the show rate problem. Another one comes up. Shit, I've got to do sales calls. You whack the sales call, right? And you solve the sales problem. Onboarding props up. It's like, fuck, I've got to solve this onboarding problem. You whack the onboarding problem. And then up comes client support, and you whack the client support problem. And then up comes, retention, and you whack the retention problem. And then up comes the accounting, and you whack the accounting problem. And then up comes the problem of having, too many clients, and then you whack that and you start hiring people. And then up comes the SOP problem. Like, business is just fucking whack-a-mole with problems. And you can only really solve one at a time, because that's the way the human brain works, right? But you whack one, the next one comes up. You whack one, the next one comes up. And I have whacked so many of those fucking moles that the problem I now have is not having any to whack. And that is a mole in and of itself. It's a paradox, but I need to smack that, and I'm going to smack it by setting a new goal. So when I set the goal of like 100 million a year, then suddenly all these fucking problems come up. Like the biggest one is scale. Like, what's the vehicle you use to accomplish that? Because the current business model I have, no one has ever scaled a business model like I have to 100 million a year, and at least done that with sanity and very good profit margins. So then I have to start, all these problems will unfold, and I'm looking forward to solving them, because without the dragon, there can be no knight. And that's an important lesson, a mindset story for another day. But, the archetypal story of George and the dragon, where it's like, in order for George, the knight in shining armor, to be a hero, he has to slay a dragon. And for you in business, the dragon is the problem you're facing right now, because you can't become someone worth your salt, capable of doing things, unless you solve problems. And so you want to welcome problems. It's like objections on sales calls. You want to welcome them. They are the dragon that turns you into the knight. Problems present you with the opportunity to manifest a version of yourself that is so much greater than what you currently are. They are the springboard to success. Problems are the thing that you want. You want problems. I want this problem. It's uncomfortable and it's not pleasant, but I want it. Because by tackling it head on and looking the snake in the eyes, I become the knight in shining armor in a different way. I transcend myself. And without problems, humans become stagnant. And when you have stagnation, you end up, sitting in bed all day just watching Netflix. And that would make me more depressed than a lot of things, right? So yeah, you can't have a knight without a dragon, unfortunately. And you can't have a successful business without problems. So you want problems. People don't understand this. They don't get it. But that's basically me talking about myself for 28 minutes. I hope you find it useful, or in some way, shape or form, insightful. But I think that people need to understand this. Like, it's not all it's made out to be. You'll make all this money. And then I started to realize that with the money thing, I was like, great, I'm doing 500 grand a month. Okay, I'll go and buy like a Lamborghini. And then I looked at it and I was like, what the fuck am I doing, man? Like, why do I want this car? And then I was looking at all these like penthouses and all these watches, and I was like, it just feels so empty to like use the money to buy those things. Because I analysed why I'd want to buy them, and I was like, it just doesn't make sense. So I might do it, but who knows. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful before I enter an existential crisis of materialism. Let's wrap the video up. If you did find this video useful, you can subscribe. In the description below, there's a link. Basically, it's a video of me explaining how we can help you get more clients. It's a funnel. It's a sales pitch. It's designed to get you to book a call. No bullshit. I don't really mind if you click it or not. It might be useful to you, but the last thing I want to do is say, oh, go and check out my free training. You're going to love my free training. I've got a webinar. I've got 10 PDFs that I'm going to... No, I don't even want your fucking email. Just watch the video. If you like what you see, book a call. If you don't, I don't care. It's fine. If you like the video, there's a button to click. There's a note that you liked it. By clicking it, YouTube will show you more videos like this that you find valuable, as opposed to all the other shit that you can see in your suggested right now. So like it. You can also comment anything you want to add below, and I will look forward to reading your comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Cheers.